Hi, listeners. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Making Change Requires Everyone. I'm your host, Max.
And I'm your co-host, Torsha.
Today, we are going to explore a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, LGBTQ plus identity and how it can intersect with race and culture. In the studio with us are Tene and Maya. Tene is a tarot reader and counselor in the community sector, and Maya is a social worker and counselor. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having us. I'm so excited to be here and to do this.
Thank you too. I'm happy to be here and I'm excited.
Can you each tell us a bit about what being LGBTQ means to you?
Yeah. So at the top of my mind, I think what comes first is the idea of family, the idea of having a safe space as much as possible. I think that in the LGBTQ plus community, we try to make it as safe as possible, or a place where we can find representation in sexuality and orientation, sexual orientation, all of that. So I think that's kind of what I see.
For me, LGBTQ plus represent, like you said, a community, and I think that it's a way to explore your identity, and for me, it is a way to take my power back too, because I think that when I was younger, I was afraid and ashamed to really show myself to the people, and yeah, it's really important for me. I guess that c'est une manière d'affirmer son identité aujourd'hui.
Thank you very much for responding the questions. Well, in 1989, Kimberly Crenshaw first introduced the term of intersectionality to discuss the impact of both racial and gender discrimination on Black women.
Yeah.
Today, the definition has expanded to refer to the ways that the various aspects of a person's identity, such as race, gender, class, religion, disability, and more, can affect how that person moves through the world. Can you touch on how interesting aspects of identity have affected you and your others you know?
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, it really affects my environment, because people around me, I think that because of my culture, I'm used to act in a certain way and to please my parents. Mm-hmm. So I think it was harder to affirm your sexuality and your culture exactly at the same time, because sometimes you feel like tu es partagé entre les deux.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also I can definitely relate to that. I think that how I live it is that, in certain spaces I might not be treated the same or feel like I'm not treated the same. And there's some spaces where I might feel safely to be or to portray a certain aspect of myself or show an aspect of myself, and some where I will not be. Like, it's like a kind of like a, I don't know, leveling game each time. And like, for example, I don't know, I might be safe to talk about my sexuality with women that are not necessarily like Black women, but like, let's say like white queer women. I'll be safe to talk about my sexuality, but I might not be safe to talk about my sexuality with Black people, like, or I'll feel less safe to do so because I don't. It's like, I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that's like, It's like always kind of like a tug of war,
Okay, that's good to know. How have westernization and colonization impacted life for racialized queer people?
In all the ways, I think it has. I think that for all minorities, society wasn't designed with us in mind. So, and I think a lot of the people that were in the majority of these communities worked really hard to push the minorities aside or make them feel like they didn't belong. So, and that still has an impact on us to this day, even if we're aware of it or not. Yeah.
For me,
I think colonization I think it's a kind of wound that all our family have actually because of the colonization. We're not able to do what we really want since we're young, and I think our parents too. So I feel like colonization is a way to control the minority and to make them like they want them you want to be, comme ils veulent que tu sois plutôt. So I think that we have some trauma of colonization, so we're not really able to assume ourselves, que ce soit à travers ta culture, ta couleur, ou même ta sexualité.
Yeah, and I think I would want to add that, like, I think we're still kind of like, we talked about trauma a little bit. I think that the reason why this wound is still so present is because it has never been resolved. It's like it never went away. These systems that were put in place, it's like a whole thing. I really think in all the ways we're affected, the queer racialized people.
Oh, thank you for sharing.
And it's such a big subject. It's like, we talk about a little glimpse of it.
Yeah, and I think it's also, just like to briefly touch on it, like I think that what's also really interesting is that there are like gender identities and ways of conceptualizing sexuality and gender that were very specific to certain cultures, and that over time a lot of those identities have been erased with colonization. There are many indigenous groups where that's the case, and if you look into, I think honestly most countries' histories, most non-Western countries' histories, you'll definitely see that. Yeah. That being said, LGBTQ people are more visible than ever. Even compared to just a few years ago, there is so much more LGBTQ representation in the media, for TV shows, movies, and even children's books. Unfortunately, with that, it seems that there's also a new pushback against it. Like almost I guess in how I'm sort of conceptualizing this question is like almost LGBTQ people are more visible because social media is really common, that there is almost more pushback. And so what are your thoughts on this?
That's such a good question. So like you feel like there's more representation, but at the same time there's more fight for like against the representation,
or at least more that we I guess.
I think that in some ways it was always like that. I don't think it's anything new. Maybe we know about it more because there's more media, people talk about it more. But I think when I think about like queer people or racialized people, it was just, I don't know, whenever they existed in spaces, it was not always, oftentimes it wasn't welcomed. There are always people that are like, that's not right to see queer people on the TV or Black people on the TV. So, yeah.
I think that there is indeed a lot of representation on social medias. I feel like sometimes it's not enough because not everyone have access to that. And sometimes I think that on devrait avoir plus d'éducation à l'école, for example, in bigger structure, in presence, because social media sometimes don't aware everyone. So maybe sometimes if you're going to another country, for example, and the city is small, if you're queer and you a racialized person, you can live these both discriminations because these people are not really aware, and we should talk more with more avec plus des structures académiques ou même politiques.
To that, I wanted to say that we need more. We need more representation, because I think that, even if we did a lot of work to be represented or see more of us, it's oftentimes, I don't know, it seems like it still has like some stereotypes attached to it. Like we would benefit from having more representation. And it's true that, we have to have them in schools too, and not just in TV, or because the characters are often like flat. I don't know if that makes sense. Characters, I don't know if that makes sense.
But I think I'm still happy to the fact that there is a lot of representation in medias.
Yeah.
Because when I'm seeing that today, I'm like, wow, j'aurais aimé voir ça plus jeune. So I'm so happy to see that. So
yeah, and I think it's with media that a lot of us queer people or queer racialized people were able to, I don't know, not see ourselves, but be like, start questioning and then start seeing our identity and be like, oh, okay, that's okay, or like it's okay if I have these questions, or it's okay if I'm like that. So, and we don't always see them, like you said, in our countries or cities, or we don't talk about it in our families or friends. So seeing it through media has helped a lot of people. We need more. Never enough.
Yeah. Well, that's really amazing things that you guys said, because like I just got to know and I realized that it should be more normalized by people when it's having more pushbacks in schools and in like at the job places or metros. Well, something that members of the LGBTQ community often refer to this idea of chosen family. How would you define chosen family? Do you have a chosen family?
So how would I define a chosen family?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
I think that when I think of family, I think what we want from family is that, it's a group of people where, you're around them and it feels nice. You can share things. But in reality, it's not like that. Our families, the families that we were born in, some people don't accept queer
True.
people, or don't make queer people feel safe. But it's important to feel safe in our identity. So I think that your chosen family is to make sure that you find a group of people that make you feel good and safe, or you can feel like you can be yourself. Because when you have to mask who you are, it's exhausting. So yeah, having a community where you feel happy, that's a chosen family.
I think that I really agree with you. It's having a safe space with the people you love. And I guess that choosing family is finding home with the people you choose, and you don't have to hide your choice. Yeah, exactly, anything.
And you don't feel like something's wrong with you, or you're flawed, or you're broken. You don't feel like you're dismissed. In the contrary, you feel alive, you feel happy, you feel excited. You feel safe.
Yeah, that's a chosen family too.
Wow. And like, just a small question. Do you have a chosen?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that coming to Montreal, because I'm not from Montreal, but I moved here about like 3 years ago. And I think that what was really exciting about being in Montreal was the ability to find not only feeling safe, finding LGBTQ peers, but finding a BIPOC community. So like a community that is like also has like specifically for racialized queer people. That made me feel even safe. Because within the LGBTQ community, we can still go through prejudice and not feel the safest, right? And I think that comes back to intersectionality, right? Where we're saying that like we have to remove certain masks, add certain masks, depending on where we are. But I think that I found my chosen family in the BIPOC community because it feels just right,
And what about Tene?
I think for me, it's a bit harder for me because I'm introvert. So it's really hard for me to trust people actually, because I'm afraid a bit. But I'm not from here too. And during these 5 years, I find my best friend is like a family for me. She's like home. She's really important to me because tout ce que j'ai traversé and in my journey to heal, she was here, and she saw me like when I was sad, happy, questioning myself. And even when I had hard choices, she didn't judge me for anything. And it was really, it means a lot for me because I think that personne ne m'a jamais vu comme ça. So I'm really happy to have her. So she's like my family.
That's beautiful.
What advice would you give to someone, whether they are youth or an older person who is figuring out their sexual orientation and or gender identity? And how can we create safer spaces for people of all sexual orientations and gender identities?
An advice. I think that I would say to remember that you're okay being who you are. Like you're okay. Like there's nothing wrong with you. You're not flawed. And take your time to figure it out, and that it might change many times, but there's like no wrong answers. You know, whatever feels right, whatever makes you feel the most you're good. Yeah, I think that's advice I'd want to give.
I think the advice I want to give is don't be afraid to make choices, to trust your feelings too. I think that in this world, people try to kill your intuition. So I think it's really important to trust your intuition no matter what. No matter even if people around saying that no, you crazy or you tripping. I think that we should trust ourselves. I think that's the advice I would like to give people around. Yeah,
and that you're the expert of your body. You know, you know you more than other people know you. I think that's really important to remember.
Yes.
And how can we create safer spaces?
Make space. I think it's to make space. Make people feel like they're okay sharing things. Yeah, make people feel like, you know, they can be themselves. And definitely educate ourselves.
Yeah.
Educate ourselves, learn about these things, ask questions. Yeah.
I think that she's right on the fact that we educate people and ourselves can help us create a safe space for everyone. And I think that create better space, it's important that we should be here for each others.
Yeah.
And being able to listen to people around us who's talking to us, so it can help us to create a better space even when we feel bad. Because je pense que quand on communique pas, ça peut vraiment nous pousser à nous isoler, et c'est important d'aller vers la personne no matter what, because she's going through things. Yeah.
Thank you all for coming on our show. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
I think I'd want to say, you know, to people that are listening, I think I want to say that, like, to remember that you're valid, you know, whatever you go through, whatever you're feeling, even if I don't know, you're angry, confused, whatever it is, you're valid in all that you are, and you're okay, you know? Well, not okay, but you're valid.
Me, I think I would like to share that I'm really happy to be here, because I feel like it was a kind of therapy for myself. But I would like to tell to people to trust themselves, actually, to not be afraid of what is coming, because I think that life is a journey. So they should try to, not they should, but they can just, we here for them. I think, like, there is safe space in the LGBTQ plus community and in the BIPOC community, that I think that we can be there for them.
Like there's space for everyone, and there's resources for anything that you might be going through. You know, as a counselor, like there's help if you need help, and for whatever it is, there's help. So
thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'm your host, Max.
And I'm your co-host, Torsha.
Remember to make space, and that making change requires everyone.